Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to a Wine Affair podcast. I am very excited today to have our guest, Marilee from Iola Wines. Very excited to talk to her, women in wine, all about it. And in honor of International Rosé Day, also perfect, we are going to talk about rosés. And that's one of my favorite varietals, so I'm very excited about that as well. As you know, and as our listeners know, we always start with what's in your glass. So I am going to kick it off to my guest, Marilee, and tell us what you're having today, Marilee.
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with the two of you. And yes, hooray for rosé. I'm a big fan of rosé too. And I will have to confess, I have a bias toward first French rosé, but also Italian rosés. There's a particular region in Italy that I love. I love the rosé from there, but that's not what we're talking about right now. What's in my glass is one of my very favorite producers. And I know I'm not supposed to have favorites, but she's one of my very favorite producers that I import from. Here is the bottle. It's Domaine Les Luquettes in Bandol. The wine grower is Sophie Cachard. And Sophie and I have been working together a long time. She's one of the very first producers that I started importing from back when I started importing 7 years ago. And she's just such a superstar. So that's what I'm drinking. Do you want me to tell you more about it? Do you want me to tell you more about Sophie?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yes, please.
Ooh, well, it smells incredible. Bandol, for me and for a lot of us wine nerds, is the standard bearer for rosé worldwide. And I think there's a real reason for that. Starting with, of course, terroir, the location of it. And then I also think that a big part of it for Bandol rosé is the grape. Mourvèdre is a prominent part of, especially in Sophie's blend. There's some flexibility about how much Mourvèdre you use, but she's an 80% Mourvèdre person, the other 20% being Cinsault. And, some years it's 70% Mourvèdre, but this is an 80-20. And she's got old vines too. Her family's been farming on this land since the 1790s and, making wine all along, but actually not selling it commercially until fairly recently, around the late 1980s. Her mom started doing that. And Sophie's been running the show for quite a while. And she's, I always say she smiles like the Mediterranean sunshine.
Oh, I love that.
And she does, she's not like your typical French person. I mean, Sophie's someone that I love seeing her. I love to go visit her in Bandol. There's 8 communes in Bandol, and she lives in La Carrière d'Azur. That's where she grew up and went to school as a little child. And obviously living on this property that's been in her family for quite a long time. So her dad is a farmer, and he doesn't really get involved with the wine side of things. Her brother handles all of her commercial work, and she's got 15 hectares of vines. Everything's done by hand there. She also has her own vine nursery, so massal selection is key here, and that's a big part of the quality of this wine. They've never used chemicals at Les Luquettes. And since, the 1790s, never any chemicals in this ground. So what I love about this wine, and this is something I talk about a lot, is the vibrancy that you get when you have living soil. Living soils mean living wines. And so obviously I talk about that a lot because my specialty is organic wines made by women from France and Italy. And this is just a wonderful example. Just so much aroma coming off of this. And one more thing I'll say, because I told you I can get going talking about wine. One of the things I love to say about Bandol Rosé, though, is, and this is something, that Sophie says, she loves to say, and it's so charming with her French accent, it's not just for the swimming pool. She's, the way she says it is, this wine belongs at the table. It absolutely, Bandol Rosé is, there's lots of rosé out there that's wonderful to quaff and quench our thirst, and it's the vin de soif of Provence and elsewhere. But there's also these gastronomic rosés, and that's 100% what Bandol Rosé is. And I don't know if you know the wine writer Andy James. One of the things that that he wrote about Bandol Rosé is that any dish with power or character benefits from an association with Bandol Rosé, and I could not agree more. This is a wine that you can certainly have it with tapenade, sitting on the beach, but you can also, have it with spicier dishes, curry. It's great with fish, of course, grill fish. I mean, I've had it with, I just make it like a simple seared duck breast, and it's wonderful. Yeah. It's one thing that Sophie loves is to have it with duck. So
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. It makes me want to kind of pull together a meal already. And it was crazy looking at your color compared to my color for those who are watching our video. They're from the same place and it's the same wine, but it's just crazy how the production really influences what you're drinking. And I was very excited.
So you've got a Bandol too.
I do.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
I did. I went ahead and grabbed a Bandol. It was funny when I was shopping on the rosé aisle. This one just, of course, jumped out. It was the big letters Bandol across it, but it's La Bastide Blanche. And ironically, at my go-to shop here in town, the Tower always has a huge selection, but this was the only Bandol I saw at the time. So I grabbed it, but it was just very obviously darker in color than a lot of the rosés that it was sitting next to. And then the thing I noticed about too, it's probably a little higher in price than your traditional go-to rosé that you'll see at the shelf. Like you just said, it's not just for sipping by the pool. This one has some oomph behind it. And it was about like 20, I think I kept saying 22, but it was like $26 to $28. I've seen it around town at a couple places. I was teasing before we got on this. Another local wine shop, Perrine's, she is doing a 15% off rosé. So we'll have to stock up while we celebrate Rosé Month all August. But this one surprised me because it is hot and you are used to just pouring a rosé and sipping on it and just having a little bit of fragrance and a little bit of flavor. But this one comes jam-packed. And when I was researching more about it, it's a 2022, so a little older than what you'll probably see on most shelves. But this particular producer is inspired and does a lot of their work relative to the Rhone area, just north of Provence. And so they really like the Château de Pape. They use kind of the similar grapes from that region. And I can tell by the taste and the color, and it made sense when I looked at the production methods, they make most of their, especially their red wines, to age. So this one is a 2022 rosé. It is higher in alcohol at about 14%. And when I first opened it, it probably needed a little more room to breathe. But you can feel the alcohol, but that makes it so great with the food. So it has a wonderful nose, not overwhelming in a bouquet, but you get a little bit of the spice. You even get a little dried fruits, like maybe a little dried apricot. And then it's also a very fun floral, but not your traditional floral that you get in white wines or red wines. So I'm enjoying that. And then what was funny, even before I tasted it or smelled it, I'm very excited. I have like a caprese pesto sandwich waiting for me. And I think that would go so well. And Marilee, as you were talking about what they like to serve with the rosés that stand up for the table, I mean, take me to France now and take me to southern France and Provence. And this with any type of seafood, straight out of the ocean, Mediterranean Sea, on a grill by itself with whatever spice or flavors you wanted to go with. I think this would be really fun. Even grilled vegetables too. So I'm excited. I might have to hit up. I might have to hit up the farmer's market this weekend just to get some of the last summer crops and throw it on the grill. I think that would make it really fun.
Well, I want both of your wines already. My goodness. I've got the Le Pont Bandol. This is a blend of Cinsault and Grenache and Mourvèdre. And it is a 2023. Comes from the Voivard and Phil's winery. and it's a family run affair. So everybody's very involved with it. My color is that very, very light salmon. I don't know if you can see that, but
you're like
it's
in
the
middle
typical.
of us.
Yeah, the pale.
Yep. Which
What
is
you
the
see in
typical
Provence.
color that I would, recognize for this. It's just a beautiful wine. I mean, when I smell this, I immediately get that scent of cherry, the little floral quality, little strawberry. I mean, it's just you can already tell, like, it's just going to be so pretty and light.
Yeah.
And then on the palate, it's very interesting. It does have a little smoke note to it on the back of the finish. So I do get a little bit of smoke with that fruit. I do get a little earthiness, but not, when we think of earthiness, in the red wine, it's not like that kind of earthiness.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a little bit of like an earthiness quality to it. And that smoke is just coming through. This would be so good with food, like you both said. One of my favorite pairings is salmon with rosé, with lots of fresh herbs. Also, Thai food and rosé has become my my go-to always. But highly recommend. Price point on this was, I think, 22 something. So not bad, pretty affordable. And just a really, really nice. What I love about rosés is it transports you. I really,
it does.
The
right one.
Right? I mean, sometimes this for me more than other wines, whenever I drink a rosé, particularly a French one, it just transports me to Provence. And I've been lucky enough to visit Provence, so it gives me all kinds of memories and takes me there. And it really is if you want to, I did an Instagram post this week and I said, if you want to be transported to Provence and drink a Provence rosé, it just reminds me of that. Just delicious.
It does. And it's, one of the things that I love about Bandol Rosé that is a lot of people don't realize is that it's age worthy. You can hold this bottle for 5 years and it will evolve and mature and become something, really interesting. I've got a little collection of Sophie's rosés from over the years. And I mean, I had a 2018 for a while and it's gone now. They're gone, unfortunately. But this time I'm determined I'm going to hold back a handful of bottles so that I can have a nice vertical in a few years. It's, I mean, I've got a 21. This is a 22. But her wines, they sell out so fast on IolaWines.com. It's crazy. And it's just because there's not a lot of it here in the U.S. There's just 2 other importers besides me. And people know them. The people that have had them, they know this wine and they wait for it. And then when it shows up, bam, it's gone. We sold out of her rosé before the middle of June.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, now I know, so I'll have to get on early. And
yeah, well, we're shipping to Atlanta now, so
perfect. I will get on and set a calendar reminder. And I love that. I think, especially what always stuck out to me about you is your passion for women in wine and putting them on the map and getting them out so the rest of people can try and learn more about the producers that are out there that you may not be aware of. But I think the neat thing too, when you're talking about the organic and your passion behind taking care of the environment it's grown in, it was neat. This particular bottle is biodynamic and organically green. So I love seeing that. And I think just kind of learning more about you and your passion that came into wine. So I'd love if you take a few moments and kind of tell us about you and what made you not only to where you are now, but just kind of your whole journey throughout your passion for wine.
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm going to try to make this succinct. Not always my specialty. So stop me if it's, if it's too much of a story, but, I mean, the journey, it's circuitous for all of us. wine came into my life in a way that a long time ago, and in a way that is not really very American, honestly. I was about 10 or 11. I'm blessed to have grown up with a dad who is a wine. I would call him an enthusiast. He's never studied wine, but he's just someone that really enjoys wine. So one day when I was about 10 or 11, it was in the summertime, he grilled T-bone steaks. I have no idea where the rest of our family was at this point, but it was just dad and me. And he's a Cabernet Sauvignon man, so he was pouring a Left Bank Bordeaux, and for whatever reason decided I could have like just a tiny, like, half an inch in a glass. And I've never forgotten that moment. And it really stuck with me. And it wasn't, it was nothing like, oh, wow, I'm just a wine prodigy at the age of 10. My palate is so evolved and developed, nothing at all like that. It was about what it meant. It was just the meaning of what it was, that it was special and that it was to go with a wonderful meal and that you drink it, with others. It's something that you share. And it was from this place far away that I knew I wanted to go someday. And I have a very vivid mental image of, the glass in front of me and my plate and sitting there with my dad. And, wine is something my dad and I have bonded over for years. So I always credit him for the reason I'm in the wine business. So eventually I did spend time in France, went to school there. And I part of what's so wonderful about what I do is that I have the great good fortune to spend time with winemakers, wine growers in France, and to be there 2 or 3 times a year. And that's increased over the last couple few years as I've been doing food and wine tours there with a friend here in Seattle who's a chef. And so we just have been having a great time. And Provence is where we were this past first week of June. So when I came home from school in France, ended up working in the wine business here in the U.S. in Washington State and California, Northern California, and did that for just about a decade. And it was about 2008 that I got to the point where I was like, well, I've had a lot of really great wine here in the U.S. I've had some amazing Napa cabs, but Cabernet Sauvignon is not originally from Napa Valley. So I got to figure out, I started just pulling on the string, the piece of yarn, trying to get closer to the origin story. And then that's really what, that's kind of all it took for me. In 2008, that was the beginning of my immersion into old world wines. And from there, studying in a more geeked out, scholarly kind of way. And, kind of here I am now, 7 years of importing and about a few years now of e-commerce direct to consumer.
That's amazing.
I've been fortunate, I'll tell you that. It hasn't been all smooth sailing. It never is. And I remember hearing someone say quite a long time ago, if you're going to get in the wine business, don't do it because you want to make a lot of money. And
I've heard
there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah. So, for me, I'm just kind of fueled by passion and belief in the women wine growers that I work with. And, when I have a tough day, I think about them and what their day was probably like. And then I tell myself, Marilee, you got this. You can do this. Look what they're doing. You can deal with what you're dealing with. It's all good.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this, because one of the goals of our podcast is to sort of pull back the curtain on the industry and let people in on, what it means to be an importer, an exporter, a distributor, all these jobs. And we're trying to sort of explain that in layman's terms to our guests and to people that listen to us. Can you sort of go into sort of like what a typical season would look like for you and what exactly you do to make all of this happen, to make Iola Wines happen?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, it takes a village.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I
Yes.
mean, and a lot of there are a lot of people in like from all different walks of life and walks of my life that are a part of um, helping this baby soar and helping us get to the point of soaring. I mean, we're still kind of early on in the process. So, what does it look like? Well, there are times when on Instagram it looks like it's the most amazing job in the world, and I think I hear mixed things. On the one hand, you're supposed to make it look like it's the most amazing thing in the world, but then on the other hand, there's all these people that want to know, like, what do you do when you're driving around in France and someone crashes into you while you're driving a rental car? And these are things that have happened. What do you do when you're sick and you have to go to the doctor in Europe? These things have happened. Yeah. So I mean, for me, the first half of the year is always really busy with trade events. It's when a lot of my travel happens. And that's because it's a good time for wine growers to be away from their vineyards now. And with the producers that I work with I always refer to them as wine growers, which is not really a very American thing to do. We think of people being winemakers. We don't even really talk so much about enologists here. We just mainly talk about winemakers. But I call them wine growers because they're all farming their own grapes. They're all, these are all really small production. Like the biggest producers I work with are 150,000 bottles, and there's just a couple, and that's that's relative to what we have here in terms of a lot of the big brands that you find in the grocery store. That's tiny production. Now someone like Sophie at Les Luquettes, that's more like 50,000 bottles. So it's really not a lot of wine each year, and it's a lot of hard work for them. So early part of the year, it's a good time for them to be away. There's less happening for them, especially, the first quarter of the year. A lot of vines are still dormant. They aren't really waking up too much yet until we're into the springtime. So trade events, that's when I'm sourcing wines for our wine clubs and meeting new producers, tasting new wines from existing producers that I've been working with. And it's a lot of, it's funny, it's an interesting time to be traveling because there's no tourists around for a good reason. It's like it's cold in France, and vineyards aren't that pretty at that time of year. There's no leaves on the vines, and there's this, cellars are extra cold at that time of year. Boy, I sat in cellars in early February in the Beaujolais, just freezing all day long, going from producer to producer, and then staying in a hotel that was under renovation. And like they opened one room for me and there was no hot water.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are like the funny things that happen. And I mean, for me, I think they're just big life experiences. I gotta start writing this stuff down too, because I forget about it until I have a conversation like this. But and then along with the sourcing, it's kind of like life in a spreadsheet. It's a lot of so much planning. There's a lot of planning that happens before I go on sourcing trips, which is a lot of quality time in Excel with spreadsheets. And there's a lot of inventory management that goes into this. Lots of research. Of course, there's the research around finding producers. That takes quite a bit of time too. And it's amazing, how often I send emails that, they just go unanswered. I don't hear back from people. Now, it's becoming more frequent that producers will have heard about me and what the mission is, and that it maybe is something that they want to be a part of. So they'll reach out to me. That's starting to happen a bit. The other thing that's starting to happen that's really fun is customers and club members, when they're traveling, if they run across someone that they think would be great for Iola Wines, a woman that's whether in France or Italy, so those are the two countries I work with, they'll send me an introduction. And so that's been really fun too. Really, and then it's exciting for a customer to see, oh my gosh, she's going to go meet the person that I met. And yeah. So that happens in a variety of ways. And then, then it's a lot of, periodically doing events for our club members. We just had one of our champagne producers flew to Seattle. It was just about a month ago. We had a club member event where people got to come and meet her, spend the afternoon with her. We get just glorious food from my friend who's a chef that I do the food and wine tours from. Of course, we tasted a lot of champagne, a lot of Arlan champagne. And then, people got to buy signed bottles. She signed bottles for everyone, and everyone got to take pictures with her and just spend time getting to know her, which is a unique experience when you're talking about a grower producer in Champagne that's making 25,000 bottles a year off of, barely 5 hectares of vines and a family. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. It's quite just a day in the life, but quite kind of an example of what goes on and what you do. And, mentioning that you've had 7 years doing this and bringing the important wines that you find back to the States for your club members and for your e-commerce, kind of explain and share a little bit more about what Iola Wines is and the amazing women in wine that you're finding. How are you selecting them? Why are you selecting them? And kind of what can us as consumers here back in the States or wherever we're located, how can we get more involved and learn more in your amazing company?
Oh, so if I meet a woman at a trade event, and that's our first meeting, I never buy wine without visiting a producer. So if you're drinking a wine from Iola Wines, you can be sure that I've been there. I don't buy from distributors. I source and direct import all of it. Wow. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, relationships are really important to me. I mean, that's the beginning of my experience with wine, is that it's about connection between other people. And so having that connection, having that relationship, that trust with, for me, my producers they're partners. This has to be a benefit for them as well as for Iola Wines and for our customers. So visiting is really important. It's also really important because we are focused on organic, biodynamic, sustainably grown wines. And what that means is I don't take anybody's word for it. People can tell you a lot at a trade event, and then you go and check it out, and it is not always the case. So that's another reason it's really important for me to go check it out. So we spend time together. We talk about her philosophies and her methodologies and her reasons behind those. We spend a lot of time tasting together. That element of it is really, really important. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And, it's amazing how often wines just don't make the cut for me. And that's because I'm particular. I'm picky. I want them all to be delicious. I want people to enjoy them. It's a business like this is interesting because, I'm not selecting wine for my palate. I need to be thinking about people that have all different kinds of preferences. So, certainly I could, select a bunch of wines for my palate, but that's not what this is about. This is about, people coming together over wine and enjoying it. And sometimes what I'm asking our customers to do is, just take a tiny step outside their comfort zone and experience something different, something that they maybe don't know, a grape that's not familiar at all. One of the things I'm really passionate about getting people exposed to is the white wines of Italy, because it's so easy for consumers to think about red wine coming from Italy. There's great red wines in Italy, but the white wines in Italy I think they're just a little bit overshadowed, and they need some love and they need some great, attention and press for how incredible they are and how age worthy they are. So like right now, tomorrow, my latest Italian shipment arrives at our warehouse. So next week I'll be driving to the warehouse to go pick up a load of basically samples that I use for tasting, I use for events. And one of the, there's a couple wines. Well, there's a bunch of wines. I'm excited about all of them. Let's put it that way. But from the perspective of grapes that are lesser known, we got Timorasso arriving. And I've been looking for a lovely Timorasso for years. And it just has taken time to find one that is at the quality level and that the producer is cultivating her grapes in a way that is in alignment with our philosophies. So yeah, I'm just so excited to have Timorasso and for people to get to experience the magic of that grape.
Yeah, no, we love that. I know Cindy and we just did an episode not that long ago about grapes you should know and unknown varieties. Cool. And we're always loving hosting events or doing wine groups with amongst ourselves, kind of exposing us to items we may not be familiar with. And so thank you for sharing what makes those wines so special. And then I think too, I love how you challenge your customers to step out of their comfort zone, because it's hard. You go to the store, you know where your wine is, you get it and you go. But I think that's the beauty of Iola Wine. So tell us more, like, how could us as consumers or customers of your program get more involved? Like,
sure.
You mentioned the club. Tell us more. Do we have to be club members? Tell us more about the business.
You don't have to be club members. So first of all, it's all online. It's an online bottle shop and wine clubs. So you don't have to be a member to enjoy. There are some wines that are reserved for members only, but you don't. I mean, there's lots of great stuff to choose from. The focus, like I said, is France and Italy. And clubs, what we have are 4 different wine clubs. We have the Connoisseur Club is a little bit of everything. It's the most popular because it's a little bit of everything. And it's 6 bottles 4 times a year. So it's not a big, you don't get tons and tons of wine coming. It's not like you're getting 4 bottles a month or anything like that. It's just quarterly we send them out. And it's a mix of a little red, a little white. I love rosé, of course. So there's always some rosé. And I mean, rosé, one thing we didn't talk about is rosé at Thanksgiving. I'm such a believer in that. It's a wonderful wine to be drinking all year long, not just in the summertime. So rosé. And then I just love sparkling wines, and there are some incredible traditional method sparklers in Italy. So I don't do a lot of Charmat wines, sparkling wines, but I do traditional method. And then we've got a couple pet nuts too that are a lot of fun. And those are Italian. And then we have the other thing, like I said, I love sparkling wine. So we have a champagne club, and that is because I keep meeting incredible women in Champagne with amazing stories. So our Champagne Club is a lot of fun. A lot of people kind of bolted on to another membership because it's just 2 times a year you get 4 bottles. Once in September, and then you get an allocation in February as well. And the idea is that, September you get 4 bottles. You can kind of start planning what you want to gift and serve over your holiday season. And of course, spoil yourself with over the holiday season. And I mean, champagne is another wine that I was just talking with someone yesterday. I do not think that, well, one, as consumers, we really haven't been trained to think of champagne as a wine of terroir, and it absolutely is. And 2, it's a wine that we ought to be drinking a lot more frequently. We have all been socialized to think about it for special occasions. And personally, I think that, Wine Wednesday is a special occasion. We should be drinking champagne. I think, if people are willing to spend, $60 and up on a bottle of red wine, a Brunello or a Napa Cab or whatever the case might be, a Barolo, then have champagne too. It is, it's extraordinarily easy to pair with food, and it's delicious. All of ours these women have incredible stories behind them. They're all, farming conscientiously. And these champagnes, they're all, like I said, all grower champagnes. So, no high volume, 20 million bottles a year Veuve Clicquot at Iola Wines. As much as I admire the story, and this is another thing I love about champagne, I love to tell people that the region, my belief, and this is just my personal theory, is that champagne, the region, and the wine, they are what they are today, largely because of the resilience and the innovation of women. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people they don't know that story about champagne. So it's really fun to talk to people about that on the private master classes I do there. It's just a fun story to tell, and then to introduce the element of terroir with champagne. It's really fun. So Champagne Club. Then we have a white wine club and a red wine club, and those two are 4 bottles 4 times a year.
Nice.
Yeah, so pretty accessible, and every allocation, you get a club insert that's written by moi. I write a lot about, of course, you get tasting notes and food pairing guidance. And I love cheese. So I usually have some cheese pairing guidance too. That's one thing I do on the website is we have food pairings, of course, on the website, but I like to do cheese pairings too. So you get that, but then I also write about the producer, a little of her story. Of course, we're talking about, always about the grape, the vintage, the region, how the grapes are cultivated, what kind of, do they hold a certification? Because I don't require producers to hold the organic or biodynamic certification. Sometimes it's cost prohibitive for people, or resource prohibitive if they're, basically working on their own. There aren't enough hours in the day to file all of the paperwork. And then there's the expense element of it too. So that's another reason why I go visit.
I love that. Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
We have your guarantee. You visited there, and you share their story, and I love that piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Iola Wines it's absolutely a mission-focused wine business about women. I'm out to democratize wine. I think a lot of people don't realize that globally only 15% of winemakers are women. And, at this point in history, that's just not enough. I mean, women are, I know the two of you are all about this too. And so you've tasted a lot of incredible wine made by women. So there's just no reason for us to not have more women involved in this business. And so I'm definitely out for that. And so it is kind of mission driven around women, but above all, it's about exceptional wine. The wine has to be amazing. I mean, that's always the first criteria. There could be an amazing story, but if the wine is not, super fabulous, high quality wine, then it's not going to be part of Iola Wines.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you don't want anyone making faces.
No, none of that, right?
Not that any of us have done that.
No, no one here would do that.
Well, Marilee, this has been so great to have you on. I love everything you've said and talked about as far as your business and supporting women. We are all about that here too. Best place to get a hold of you is your website, right?
Website or social media. The best place is Instagram, iola.wines, or you can always email me at hello@iolawines.com. Yeah, or just pop onto the website and sign up for our newsletter. And those are primarily, there are lots of like stories about producers, stories about grapes, stories about things like, hey, what's happening in the vintage this year? I mean, for example, the producer that just came to Seattle to visit, she just announced that unfortunately this vintage has been so hard, they will have 0 harvest this year. And she is not the only one. It has been a really tough year in Champagne. Yeah. Yeah. So, really makes your heart break. I mean, another one of them, they had a flash flood about 6 weeks ago, and she's lost something like 85% of this year's crop. So, yeah. So, yeah, and it's reasons like this that I, do whatever I can to encourage people, buy small producers because they need you. They're doing great work and they need you to be a part of what they're doing.
Yeah. I love that. And that's,
Yes, absolutely.
You talked about the big wine houses, the big champagne houses, and they're wonderful for what they provide us with. But I agree, and I think that's so special in what you do. And I have to give you a shout out from earlier. You talked about being authentic on Instagram, and I do. I have to say, we may not all be able to travel to France or Italy as often, but I highly suggest everyone following you on especially Instagram, because you're amazingly authentic, and you can go on the tours with you. You can see your tastings, you can see your masterclass, and that gives you that next step that you already feel connected to, even before you sign up for the clubs and purchase the wine through you. So thank you for what you do.
Oh my goodness. I say it's an honor. It's an honor to be doing this for our customers and club members here in the U.S. And it's an honor to be doing this for the women in France and Italy that I have the privilege to work with. So I'm just the connection point between the two of them. That's my job, is just to make those two groups come together and connect, and because they ask about each other. It's crazy. Producers ask, who are the women drinking the wine? Who are these people in the U.S. drinking my wine? And customers ask me, well, tell me about, I want to know about Sophie. Like, is she a mom, or what's her family like? People want to know. They want to know about each other. So yeah, my job is to connect them. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You are a lot of the reason that we started this podcast. People like you that do what you do, particularly, and whenever I can support women, 100%. Thank you, Marilee, for joining us, and cheers to you.
Oh my goodness, such a privilege. Thank you both for inviting me to spend International Rosé Day with you and get the chance to drink wine with you. That's a pleasure.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Here's to women in wine.
Women in wine.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Website.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all.